Welcome to the Comfortable in Chaos Podcast. Strangle your demons and let's go.
Y'all need Jesus!
I heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend who heard it from another. You've been messing around. They say you got a boyfriend. You're out late every weekend. They're talking about you and it's bringing me down. But I know the neighborhood, and talk is cheaper when the story is good. And the tales grow taller on down the line, yeah. But I'm telling you, babe, that I don't think it's true, babe. And even if it is, keep this in mind. Welcome to the Comfortable in Chaos Podcast. I am your host, Eric Hellberg. And you know, we're like Einstein over here, man. And even Einstein wouldn't be on the International Olympic Committee. We're just passionately curious about all things pertaining to man. How in the hell did we get here, and where is it that we want to go? Good Lord God Almighty, man. Let's kick it up. I tell you, Kamala is back on the stump, and I want you guys to realize the same media that 2-3 weeks back told you that good old Uncle Joe was fit for the job is the same media that is telling you that Kamala is now great. Good old Kamala. Did you know Kamala just got back from Hotlanta? I never even knew what the hell they meant about that term Hotlanta, other than it was just a smorgasbord of people from all over the world engaging in all kinds of malicious and treacherous debauchery. Everything known to man. And you're going to be like, well, how would you know that, Eric? Eric knows that because I have chased more Haitians, Rastafarians, from every damn isle in the Caribbean than I can even imagine. I look like I was in the back of Bob Marley and the Wailers station wagon, chasing these dudes with dreads and them chasing me. But that's something that Kamala really doesn't know about. But we know that Kamala went on down to Hotlanta. And boy, she was giving some good old Southern fried talk. I'm talking some real Aunt Jemima shit. And you're going to be like, you can't say that, Eric. Sure, I can say that because I've eaten fried chicken with a black man right in front of me. In fact, I've been to fried chicken establishments you choose at churches, Popeyes, KFC, in the hood. In fact, many hoods, because grabbing a bucket on the go is very easy to do when you travel for a living and your time needs to be exacting. And so you grab that old chicken leg and you're just eating it on the run. I've been the only white boy at some of these establishments. Now, does that mean that black people only eat fried chicken? F no, it doesn't mean that. I'm sure they like a host of other things. But it means that I like fried chicken and that I saw all black people there. Now, you know that I have family that comes directly from Mexico. Are you going to say it's bad for me to say that they eat beans? You know how many pots of beans that I've cooked? You know how many plates of beans that I have been served? Cut the bullshit, people. The bullshit you need to pay attention to is the very fact that the Democrats, who were the party of slavery, are the same ones who are still trying to fool you. Go look at Kamala's birth certificate. Huh? Go look at it. Old Judge Joe Brown's talking about it again, but I already knew she had a Canadian birth certificate. What does she know about the black experience? Only the media is calling her black. Kamala's never said that about her. In fact, in an interview when she was asked, how do you feel about potentially being the first Indian senator? She's like, well, no, I'm not. Her hands go white. No, I'm not. Hell, she doesn't even know what she is. We've already talked about it. Indian. Jamaican. All right? Friggin' granddad was a slave owner in Jamaica. I've already quoted you chapter, verse, source on that. Even she doesn't know, but did you know she was talking some Southern fried mumbo jumbo? She wants to fool you into thinking that she's black and get some of those votes. And because she is a representative of the black constituency, she had Megan Thee Stallion up there pumping up the hips and saying, hey, Get it on up. How? Ha-ho! Yeah, just like I did in another episode. That's indicative of black culture. You're trying to fool us, Kamala. They don't like you. Who else tried to fool us and say they were black? Of course, Billy Bob Clinton was the first black president. You know directly because I've spoke about it in the past. I served under Clinton. That was one of the presidents, but I also served alongside someone who was part of his gubernatorial security detail. Now, you got to realize that good old Billy Bob Clinton was always a predator of proximity. Meaning, once he achieved some prominence and power, if you were in his proximity, you would be preyed upon. That's why you had the litany of ladies, the white ladies that he assaulted and accosted. And of course, he got off. At that time, paid $800K. That's quite a bit of money back then, right? In the 90s. But his real penchant, of course, as the, we would say the most regular guest on the Lolita Express and Epstein's Island, according to both Secret Service logs and flight logs, and manifest on the island that his real penchant and his real desire laid for young girls. And of course, when he was governor of good old Arkansas, black female prostitutes. Okay, so he had to fool us. He was the first black president. And then, of course, whose playbook did Kamala just follow? Cringe-worthy Hillary Clinton. Because remember when she'd roll up in a black church and she'd be talking, I'm Southern fried and amen, I'm hallelujah. Why does the party that espouses to look after black people always try to fool black people? It's a very interesting concept. All right, fast forward. We know Kamala's a fraud, and I'm going to tell you this. Someday soon, and we know Barry was a fraud, an abject failure of a man, fooled us all. He didn't fool me. He didn't fool y'all. He was just perpetuated. That's when the globalist agenda really took off like an Elon Musk rocket. But we're going to realize that the administration of Barry Obama was probably the greatest fraud ever perpetuated upon the American people. And despite all the crimes, criminality, everything that we know they have done, not a one of them has ever been carted away in handcuffs. That's so interesting. And all you Democratic naysayers who are still out there impugning Trump's character, pick me one that's better. At that time, he was 49 years old, Slick Willie Clinton, inserting cigars into a 20-year-old's vagina. But you can gloss over that. When they went into Epstein's Manhattan apartment, brownstone more specifically, there's Slick Willie in high heels, in pastels, in the blue Monica Lewinsky dress. Why? He runs the game, man. So get over it and let's move on. Now we're getting all kinds of good attention to Kamala's husband. And who is this guy? He's just another white cracker, isn't he? That's Doug Emhoff. Oh, yeah. He used to be a partner in DLA Piper, the big old Hollywood legal firm. No wonder Kamala was able to shore up so much financial support. And if you think they were in on this decision and just to prove that good old Uncle Joe was forced out, here's how it went down, at least for Kamala and Doug Emhoff. They had no knowledge of it because Doug's already told the story on the stump. And he said, well, the week it happened, he was recounting a much repeated moment while he was on a video call supporting Harris, hosted by black LGBTQ advocates. He was having coffee with friends after a Soul Cycle class in Los Angeles. And we know that community in LA represents the interest of the American people at large. And that a friend showed him Biden's letter posted earlier on that Sunday on X. Why didn't Kamala show her husband the letter? Why was he away from Kamala? It denotes that Kamala didn't even know about the letter. And so he rushed to his car to grab his phone because he had been on his soul cycle. And he got tons of messages saying, it's basically, call Kamala, call Kamala, call Kamala from everyone. And of course, the first thing she said in a message was, where the F are you? I need you. Looks like it was brand new news. So yes, the same media that told you that Joe Biden is fit for office is now telling you that Kamala and her now husband, Doug Emhoff, are wonderful. They're as wonderful as white sliced bread. And what did we begin with today, man? We began with a classic by REO Speedwagon. I have already tipped the bucket of Kamala's real roots, her origins, and her propensities. And you know what? Doug Emhoff is a perfect complement to that. So here's what we have to say about Kamala, and to continue on with our music. You take it on the run, baby. If that's the way you want it, baby, then I don't want you around. I don't believe it, not for a minute. You're under the gun, so you take it on the run. Dovetails perfect into the Olympic Games, because if you have seen their daughter, of course, when they married, Mr. Emhoff had adult children that were blended into Kamala's new family. But I would say that their daughter is the product of woeful neglect. And her appearance is such, of course, I cannot testify as to her heart and or her inclinations, but she would fit perfectly into the Gay Paris opening Olympic ceremonies. And if you don't think the sycophants, and I love saying sycophant, have not converged in Paris, where pedophilia and everything demonstrated to you abounds, then you would be gravely mistaken. And we're going to build out some of this stuff, because we've heard that good old Barry possibly could have Michael instead of Michelle. And hey, don't discount Michael or Michelle, because we haven't got to the Democratic National Convention yet. We still haven't got to Chicago. We may still, for the very first time in American history, get the first presidential candidate with a size 14 Adidas sneaker. But all that being said, since we're focused in Gay Paris, we've got Macron, who I'm going to tell you is a flaming exhibitionist homo who probably has a transvestite of a wife himself. The country is absolutely filthy, and it began years ago when they had the whole-scale migration of Islamic savages. And now you really get to see what happens in Gay Paris. And we're going to build some things out from there. And here's what I want to tell you. Since I just said Islamic, and we know that there is a war going on between Hamas and Israel and Hezbollah, with Turkey threatening. So all things Middle East, right? And we are being told that genocide, is being committed in Gaza. And you know what? There is a lot of death and destruction there. But when your enemy is enmeshed within the civilian populace, how do you ferret them out? How do you cleanse the vermin from their tenements? Okay, that's one thing. The second thing is, since we are still extolling our sympathies for the people of Palestine, a made-up state, I'm going to go ahead and add a new wrinkle. I am going to tell you that mass migration is genocide. The allowance of mass migration via illegal means into any country is genocide. If you destroy any country's border, if you destroy any country's culture, if you destroy any culture's language, then you have effectively killed its citizenry. And that's what they have done to the United States of America. And that is what has already happened in France. But still, our lawless lawmakers up there in Washington will allow a scumbag like Tlaib to have an American flag, if you look at her front door on the left side of her office, and a Palestinian flag on the right side. Boot her ass out of here, or else you will get another gay Paris. A country so entrenched in filth and depravity. Let's talk about what's going on in these Olympics. Last night, you had an Italian woman quit 46 seconds into her boxing match. You know why? She had to fight an Algerian Muslim, but not a woman. An Algerian Muslim man pretending to be a woman who hit her so hard after 2 shots she dropped to her knees and said, "This is unjust." And you know what? The lady was right. Who in their right mind would have a woman fight a man in the Olympic Games? These effers in Paris would. Did you know they have their cyclists going around as the rain is just pissing all over them on decrepit cobblestone streets, falling off their bikes and getting hurt, sliding along the dog shit when those skinny tires go through them because it is so fetid no one picks up after themselves? In fact, they don't feel like they need to. That country is ours now. Did you know the triathletes, if you looked at the pictures, my God, I wouldn't have even put my toes in it, were asked to swim in the River Seine, the vaunted River Seine, that immediately upon exiting the water, they cannot even get on their bikes for the second leg of the triathlon because the viral and bacterial load is so extensive in that horrific waterway that their bodies immediately start purging the impurities. These are people at the pinnacle of health, bent over, throwing up, retching, because their bodies have been so maligned and attacked in a short period of time in that disgraceful and disgusting place. That is Europe. That is France. And that is what they want for us. And I'll tell you another thing. I don't know his last name without looking it back up again, but his first name is Pan. Yep, that's the Chinese 100-meter freestyle swimmer who just obliterated the record books, set a new world record. And it's the first time that a new world record has been set in an Olympic freestyle event since 1976. I didn't say an Olympic record, but a new world record. So that tells you right then, we're going back to Mark Spitz times. Yes, that is before Michael Phelps, who is our greatest Olympian of all time, and I think is a total badass. But I will tell you this, that Michael Phelps swam in, remember, the customized shark suits? Think about him and Ian Thorpe and all these guys competing against one another, and the Aussies had him too. But they have now been banned as illegal in the Olympic Games. They haven't been used for some time. Good old Pan just simply wore a swimsuit in his nakedness. And did you know his world record eclipsed the other people who were swimming more comparable Phelps times by 1.10th, really 1 second and an 11th second, bested his closest rival. That would have left Michael Phelps's long frame, his full body length behind him in the dust. And you don't think this man did something great? The clip of this man, without ever showing his face from China, was less than a minute long from the National Bestiality Consortium. Had it been an American swimmer, although it's in another country, we would have had to hear their bullshit for 10 minutes. And did you know that same morning that the IOC had given Pan a urinalysis at 5 a.m., woke him up, an Olympic athlete, and that team and that man were drug tested 8 to 10 more times than any other competitor? Why? because Macron and his deviants are members of NATO. They're also a G7 country. They are in direct competition against China, who is supposed to be bad and oppressive. Well, guess what? They just whooped all of our asses in king-style fashion. Give the guy his just due. Phelps is amazing and always will be. This guy just set a new bar. Man, oh man, let's go ahead and cleanse ourselves, men, from this filth they are wanting to inflict upon us and to allow us to become. Let's go to my show sponsor, OldCountrySoap.com. Old is spelled O-L-D-E, OldCountrySoap.com. Use the promo code CHAOS20, and Elon, their owner, will give you 20% off, as he is hand-making American soap, hand-cut in Burbank, South Dakota. Now, I am not espousing that it can cleanse you internally from a brief jaunt into the River Seine, but externally, it's remarkable, sudsing nature, and you will have to use the sisal fiber bag to scrub yourself clean from what you have been exposed to. But it will make your skin feel supple and soft. And the bentonite clay and the coconut oil base will definitely help remove the impurities that have now been laid upon you from your skin in the River Seine. It is infused with essential oils. It is the best artisan, handmade soap in the world. Why? Because of its composition and its cost effectiveness. Get clean, OldCountrySoap.com. Now, man, where we're going to go now is just simply into the murky world of, let's say, intelligence. Because they keep us like a mushroom, right? In the dark and covered in the shit they throw on us. So we have to have a little bit of entry into that same world. So the next tidbits of information I'm going to tell you have been conveyed to me directly from people that would be on the operational side of that world, as well as the analytical side of that world. I'm not going to tell you if they are currently in it and or simply around it. But here's what we know. We now know that in Butler, PA, because we like tying up loose ends on the show, there were 2 helicopters. It's well known to everyone now that Crooks had went ahead and had his run of the entire grounds before. We would have had law enforcement and Secret Service present at any time and all the time. But he was able to fly his drone and get good imagery, and he actually used that to get his best rooftop vantage point. But despite all that, and during the actual speech, during the actual gathering, we had, I don't know who they were flying for, 2 helicopters that remained hovering the entire time. And you're telling me from that vantage point and that close locale that whoever were in those helicopters could not simply make a radio call and say, hey, we got this mother on the roof, or even when he climbed up on the roof. They couldn't have even said that once he had utilized his drone footage to get in position on the roof, that he moved approximately 15 meters further away to get the appropriate shooting vantage point, because he had already had an opportunity to do his research. How do we know that he moved if he were facing the building from which Crooks purportedly fired from that far down? Because we now have camera, video footage from the other side, meaning if you were looking at Trump's podium, it would have been on his right side. You can actually see Thomas Matthew Crooks, if in fact that was him, come up the roof, lay down on the roof, decide that wasn't where he wanted to be, and then move approximately 15 feet over to the right. They watched this whole thing manifest. They allowed this whole thing to manifest. They are part and parcel of it. Now, I'm going to tell you this as well. Did you know the FBI would be wholly remiss had they not gone into
Thomas Matthew Crook's suburban home, a modest dwelling with he and his mom and his dad. Did you know that they have tried to gain fingerprints within the home, do DNA analysis within the home, but that even all the doorknobs and even silverware? So unless Thomas Matthew Crooks was like young Sheldon and wore gloves all the time, wouldn't you find Thomas Matthew Crooks, because I guarantee you they found him on a weapon, right? And those fingerprints should also match the doorknobs and the silverware within his own domicile where he lived every day. But none of them are there. That is very curious to me. And we also know, as I detailed in another show, that there were frequent and repeated visits to a man, I don't have that identity yet, that went right back to a building right next door to an FBI building. This has gotten so crazy. And did you know? Now we have the new director of the Secret Service. Can't remember his first name, last name is Shaw. And he is being belligerent on the Hill as he's being questioned. But we now know that he directly denied increased security for President Trump in the lead up to the shooting at Butler, PA. We also know now that he has still not provided more adequate Secret Service protection to President Donald Trump since the event. But you know who has received it? This joker in Kentucky that Kamala is deliberating on whether or not, and he's a white boy, should be her VP pick. But that man can get increased Secret Service protection. But Trump has now had to augment this stuff of his own private accord. It still has not been forthcoming. Remarkable indeed. So let's segue. We know on the CIC podcast, we like to take the complex and make it simple. And I will tell you that our leaders try to portray that everything is so complex that they're always needing to dumb it down and make it simple for us. So us, normal Americans can understand it. But let's do our part here on the CIC. Let's just say a put option is an investment. It is when someone expects a company's stock price to fall, they will put what is called a put option on that company and or those shares of stocks. It is when they are trying to short the stock. Okay. Well, I am going to tell you that on Friday, that would have been July 12th, meaning the market was open because the attempted assassination attempt of President Trump in Butler, PA occurred on the 13th of July, Saturday. But did you know there was a company, and it is called Austin Private Wealth, LLC. It's a Texas-based financial planning company. And we know we've had some powerful leaders from Texas here in recent memory, and the people who were in their administration were all kind of focused around the great state of Texas. I'm going to tell you there was another one that was engaged in that as well. And that company was called Citadel, which is another private equity firm with a hedge fund component to it. Now, keep in mind that the Texas-based company, meaning Austin Private Wealth, put options, wanted to short the shares of 12 million shares of DJT stock. That is Donald J. Trump's media company. Now, and Citadel was in the hokey for approximately 2 million shares that they put options on. Now, can you imagine if President Trump died that day? Could no longer represent that company, be the face of DJT shares? That company could have potentially went bankrupt and or went to zero. But you had these two private equity firms hedging their bets. Would we call that inside knowledge? That something unfortuitous was going to occur, and that would put them in the position to win with the demise of Trump. What is it that they knew? How did they know this? Well, how was this discovered? Well, everyone knows Bloomberg, right? Michael Bloomberg used to be the mayor of New York City. And, of course, Bloomberg Financial News. They have active and real-time financial tracking instruments, mainstream media broadcast where you can follow them. But every journalization, meaning every scintilla of activity on Wall Street, can be tracked, albeit it is done via computer at lightning fast speeds, utilizing algorithmic formulas, very, very hard for the average person to see, even the average full-time trader to see. But that data can be preserved. And when an insider within that organization screenshotted the actual put options put and then sent it to two independent financial journalists who then posted these screenshots on X, well, that's when we had an aha moment. And that's when we knew that Austin Private Wealth LLC had engaged in a little bit of, what would we call that? Suspicious activity. What makes it even more suspicious, and I've already done episodes called The BlackRock Kid. I've already demonstrated BlackRock's ties to this assassination attempt. But who are the investors? Because when you get up at the very top, everyone washes their hands together, right? The end result is that the sink basin ends up filthy. Well, did you know that the largest investors of Austin Private Wealth LLC are these members? The Rothschild Family Trust. Oh yeah, the good old Rothschild money, right? Good old globalist family. Vanguard, second largest private equity manager in America. Meta. Who is Meta? Good old Zuckerberg, Facebook. Did you know the George Bush Family Trust is an investor? Why would George want Donald gone? The Cheney Family Trust is an investor with Austin Private Wealth LLC. And of course, BlackRock is an investor in Austin Private Wealth LLC. And really, a lot of people don't realize the second largest fund manager in America is Vanguard, but Vanguard is wholly owned by BlackRock. Can you imagine what would have happened with Trump's death? Probably would have crashed the NASDAQ and maybe Dow Jones for a week. But these people took that chance for some reason. They thought they could benefit enormously. And did you know these independent journalists have now calculated, looking at the number of shares that participated, that this organization would have had a windfall earning of anywhere between $696 billion to $1 trillion in profits. Boy, that could have boosted BlackRock up from close to 12 trillion in holdings. Man, they could have had 13 trillion. Guys, the fix is in. We have so much more to talk about, so much more I wanted to get into. But let's just go ahead and take a break, and let's resume tomorrow. So until next time on the Comfortable in Chaos podcast, I bid you bon voyage, my burgeoning flock.